Hello everyone, this is Chrissy and welcome to our channel Fly Me to the Philippines. It's early in the morning here in the Philippines and I just woke up, but I decided to put a little bit of lipstick and a little bit of foundation on my face because I decided to film this. Um, you know, 2 days ago we published a video about Rob visiting my hometown. You know, it wasn't intended for him to visit there because my plan was just to visit my family, but he was very curious about it and also wants to see my family and witness how my family's living situation in my hometown. So at first I was so hesitant if I'm gonna let him visit my hometown because it's very different and very opposite of how he grew up in America. So today I decided to ask him about his feelings, his reaction, and how he think about my previous living situation because for now, as you can see, I am now living in a big house. We did this house tour before and we have shown you the every part of the house, which is really beautiful. I am now living in a beautiful big house in a gated community, having this facilities inside the house which I am not used to have before. And it's I feel like very lucky. I feel like very fortunate to have this in my life, which I did not expect. Because I was expecting that I'm just gonna live a very simple life, just like how I lived before. Well, we call it simple, but maybe to you, you call it poor living. So, every morning, Rob will go to the patio downstairs. So, he doesn't know that I'm filming this. And he doesn't know that I prepared 20 questions for him. It's all about his feeling, his reaction about the visit in my hometown and seeing my previous living lifestyle. So, but before that, I'm gonna go downstairs because I need to have a cup of coffee before asking him the questions. So, yeah, as you can see, if you have watched that video, you will see how opposite my living situation right now. Oh, I think he's downstairs and heating up his coffee, so it's not yet the right time to go down because this should be a surprise video for him. So, okay, let's go downstairs. Here. And yeah, for me, it's so nice to live in a place like this. But I want to know what Rob thinks about my living situation in my previous years before I met him. So, after that visit, I was thinking, will this guy will still love me after witnessing my poor living lifestyle, before I met him? And that's what I want to know right now. That's why I prepared these questions for him. And yeah, let's go there after I make this coffee. Let's go to the patio. He's there. Wait. Baby?
Yeah.
Where are you? Hey.
What's up? What's going on?
Hi.
What are you doing with the camera? You playing with playing?
I'm filming.
What's up?
So you used to surprise me with films and action, questions.
Okay.
So now I think it's my turn to
All right.
surprise you.
All's fair in love and war, right?
um, I'm just gonna set up the camera. I'm gonna ask you 20 questions.
About what?
Is that all right?
What about?
You will find out after I set up the camera. Okay?
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel Fly Me to the Philippines. Today we're gonna put Rob on a hot seat.
Wow, you look beautiful in black, Chrissy.
You look gorgeous too in black,
Black,
baby.
yes.
So actually,
My seat is very hot. What do you got in store for me?
He didn't know that we're filming upstairs, so. But I prepared these questions really for you. And I thought about it after you visited my hometown in Pagadian City, which you can see. We're gonna put the link below in that video. And yeah, it's just like simple questions for you to be answered, and just share your honest feelings and thought about it.
Okay.
And there's something in me that I wanted to know within you after the visit.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do
So,
my best.
Here we go. Our first question.
Okay.
So, baby,
Yes.
how did you feel before visiting my family in my hometown?
Well, I had my apprehension. Initially, we had your family come meet me 5 hours north in Cagayan de Oro, Mindanao, northern Mindanao, which is a big city and considered very safe. So on one hand, I was concerned about traveling into central Mindanao. The U.S. State Department has it as level 3 reconsider travel. I think last year it might have been level 4, do not go. So I had my apprehensions. I've met a number of expats who've been there who said it was okay, but it only takes one bad experience. So I was kind of worried if we got in a traffic accident and maybe a local was injured and there could be a heated argument and things could get out. Those kind of scenarios were in my head. So I was a little apprehensive about that. In terms of meeting your family, I've met your family previously. They're all very kind, very nice. But I wasn't 100% sure what the living conditions would be like, whether I'd be spending a lot of time in a really hot, stuffy place without fans or air conditioning. My comfort kind of probably came into question, but I was a little worried that my impression, I have this image of you in my mind of being this elegant, beautiful Filipina, and I was a little worried that I might have a adjustment of my, I don't know, I was a little concerned,
Okay, so but there's already like an image in your mind what it's possibly look like.
When we met, you were video chatting from your father's house
Yeah.
in a provincial bedroom. You could see light through some of the cracks in the walls.
Yes.
And from your mother's house, and the roosters were going off and it was noisy, and so I had some, and I've seen other vloggers show provincial houses. I know it's one thing to see it on video, it's another thing to be there. So I was a little apprehensive about my thoughts, and how I certainly didn't want to show any judgmental expressions or anything like that.
So, what were your first impression the moment you arrived at my family's home? Let's go first to my mom's home.
When we pulled up, we parked in front of a Sari Sari store on the roadside, and I really didn't have any idea where I was going. And when we went around the back of the Sari Sari store, there was a rather decent house down the hill that we walked towards, and I thought maybe that was your home. I didn't know what we were getting into. It turns out that was not your home. Your home was around the side. It was a trail. It wasn't paved. It was starting to get kind of rugged. There was an enclave of kind of shacks or huts. It's a squatters area where the families don't actually own the land.
Correct.
And they don't have plumbing. They run a hose to. There's some people that live nearby are nice enough to kind of sell you water, and I don't know how you get electricity down there. But it was much rougher than I expected. So my initial impression was kind of I hadn't seen personally um, that type of living situation. I wasn't exactly sure what it was going to be like when I got inside. It was clean and orderly, and it was better than I thought. But when I first walked up, I was a little taken back by it was just very rugged, and much less, established, and less, more of a, a hobbled together housing than really houses.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was a little bit like unsure of what I was going into.
So, what is the thing that struck you the most about the provincial living, especially specifically in our hometown, in my hometown?
Um, it's the amount of the kitchen is outdoors. The um, the setup of your mother is kind of it reminded me more of camping, where people, they have their individual rooms and a fan, electricity and a fan on one light bulb in each room maybe. Um, there is a microwave, there is, there's an outdoor dirty kitchen that's common to your brother. You have a brother with a child, a sister with a child. You have brothers and sisters. You have a 5-year-old stepsister, 25 years younger. You've got a 17-year-old brother. There's, extended family, and there's 3 bunkhouses. You had one built when you were teaching, and then your mother has a room. You rent a room to your cousin, but there's one central toilet that's shared. There's one central kitchen that's shared. And there's no roofing over that central area in between the different. So it's like this extended family is each got their own bunkhouse, which is very small, so it kind of felt like camping a little bit. It was interesting.
During the visit in my family's hometown, can you share a memorable moment?
Uh, you know. I asked your brother Junji if I could see the inside of his bunkhouse, and I don't know, it's like photobombing somebody, or like, I don't know what you call it, but I don't think he was prepared. I don't think his wife was prepared to have me come inside and film.
Not.
They have a 18-month-old child living in the bunkhouse, and he said sure and let me in, and that was. I guess because we're making YouTubes, I did it, but I don't think I would have done it normally.
Yeah.
I kind of peeked inside some of the bunkhouses. Your bunkhouse was very, very nice and neat, and is being used now by your mother.
Yes.
You don't live there anymore, and it had a microwave and a fan, and shelving units for clothing, and it had a full bed. I think the other bunk units, they roll out a mattress when they sleep and roll it up like Japanese style when they're not.
Yes.
But yeah, that was the moment, I think, that was, when Junji let me in to see the bunkhouse, and I saw, there was an overhead fan in the room, which was very nice, but it was rougher than I expected.
Okay, so how about the driving through the province? How did you feel about it?
I've been reluctant to get a car. This is my first full year in the Philippines, and I see how tight the driving is and how everybody comes so close to hitting each other, and motorcycles, pedestrians, dogs running on the road, and vendors on the side of the road. It's crazy. So this is my first time. I actually hadn't driven in like 5 months, 5.5 months. I hadn't driven a car. Well, no, I was back in America in July. So I actually hadn't driven in 3 months or so. It was easier than I expected. I was super careful. You have to be so vigilant. Like, it wasn't like driving where you're just kind of having a conversation, looking around. You have to really, really, really keep your eyes on the road and not use any excessive speed. But we had a tinted windshield on this car, which was very unusual, probably illegal in most places. And there were fires in Indonesia that were blowing haze into Mindanao, central Mindanao. So, and it was cloudy because it's the rainy season. We get a lot of cloud cover during rainy season. So between the cloud cover, the haze from Indonesia, the tinted windshield, and kind of gray. Everything seemed a little gray and a little dirty on the provincial roads. It reminded me of driving from Hanoi to Ha Long Bay, which is 4 hours along like a state highway where there's nothing but businesses and houses and tire shops and restaurants and everywhere along the state highway. There were very few gaps where there were like long agricultural sections. And there was a lot of population along that road. But you have to pass, like every 15 seconds, you have to pass a slow trike, you have to pass a slow motorcycle. There's a lot of passing going on. I got comfortable with it. I think somebody gave me a car, I'd be happy to have it and use it. It's cheaper to take taxis for as much as, because we can walk through a lot of places from here. But I kind of got comfortable with it. But it was a real challenge. I didn't have the dogs don't really dart into the road as much. Some of them lie in the middle of the road. You have to go around them. But the trikes all have to be passed. They're just moving so slow. So there's so much of that. Yeah, it was interesting.
So I think it was the timing of the day.
My goal was not to drive at night at all with that tinted windshield, but we ended up having to drive on the way home from Iligan City to Cagayan de Oro. I mean, you needed a truck with lights on. There were so many motorcycles. The motorcycle might have no rear light, but the headlight worked. There were trucks on the road without any lights.
Yeah.
I think about 1 out of every 5 vehicles on the road had no lights on at all. And there were people walking along the side of this like 2-lane state highway. And it was just insane. I don't know how there wasn't more roadkill. You just expect to see dead dogs and dead people everywhere in these conditions, but somehow people are surviving. But it was just, oh my God, there were so many vehicles without lights, and you just couldn't see anything but that tinted windshield. I don't know how we made it home. I mean, Chrissy was helping me look out the windshield. There were like 4 eyes on the road at all times. And we fell in behind a truck at one point, and that really helped a lot. Yeah.
So based on your first driving here in the Philippines, do you think you would still like to drive again?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, we also went up into the mountains of Bukidnon. And,
Yes.
going up these steep mountain passes, coming down the passes. If you get a car in the Philippines, you need some heavy duty suspension, because even right in this beautiful subdivision, as soon as you exit it, there's some cracks in the road and you could hit.
It's so hard.
First thing we did is the first 5 minutes we were in the car, we pulled out of this nice subdivision and boom, we hit a crack in the road. I'm telling you, it's like, you gotta pay attention where you're driving, yeah.
During the visit, what is like the cultural differences that stood out during your visit in my family?
Again, I keep saying this before I came to the Philippines, they speak English in the Philippines, but your family just doesn't speak English. Your father tries, Junji speaks some English with me, but if they read the road signs, they can read the menus, they probably know what we're talking about, but they're just not comfortable engaging in conversation. And that's true of almost everybody in the Philippines. They don't speak English to each other unless they're in school and the class is being taught in English. It's very, so culturally, the native tongue of Cebuano, which is so similar to Visayan, is being spoken. I probably know 15 words, and you get big warm smiles from your family when they hear me, that I know a few words. But I'm not really able to have conversation. Even like your father came back with us and stayed 3 or 4 days. He's just so uncomfortable being in a situation where he's like trying to come up with all the English words, trying to talk in English. He's such a nice guy. And culturally, the people are, kind of healthier than you might think, living without much means. They're happier. People are so content. Whereas back in the West, people are all stressed out and going to see their therapist, and they're angry and they're pissed off about politics, and nobody talks about politics, and nobody seems to mind the fact that food is a little scarce and luxuries aren't that scarce. They love to go outdoors. They spend a lot of time outdoors. Everybody loves to be around the children. It's just very happy, well-adjusted people. Some people might think that they're richer than the West in terms of just the pleasure they are able to get out of life. Yeah.
So now the next question is what I am really curious about. So after the visit that we had made to my family, is there any changes of your perspective in our relationship or in our life in general?
You know, it was kind of shocking because you are very sophisticated compared to maybe some family members. Um, when I met you, you were living there. I saw you on video chat. I heard the roosters. I realized you were living in sort of a lower standard of living environment. But you were a college teacher, a college educated teacher, and you wear nice clothing. You use, and I met you in Makati, and you just blended right. You walk around that Louis Vuitton store, and you walk around that mall, and you go into the fancy restaurant, and you just blend right in. And I could bring you to Los Angeles or Beverly Hills, and everybody would just be so jealous that I found such an amazing woman. So it's such a, I don't know that anything changed, but there was this calibration going on in my brain, like that you were this girl that grew up in that bunkhouse, that you cooked your meals with firewood, that you have maybe no refrigeration in the house, that you're using water from a hose from a neighbor who's kind enough to share it. You're walking up and down those muddy hills, and it just like didn't compute.
What is the most significant thing you've learned about Philippines during this visit?
I think Filipinos are really hard-working people. Like their day typically doesn't involve a lot of luxury, a lot of air conditioning, a lot of sitting around watching television. I just think that Filipinos are very, very hard-working, and they don't mind sitting on a bus for 7 hours. They don't mind 10 hours of hard labor, and so that's the number one thing. It's very, very hard-working.
So how do you think this visit has impacted to your personality?
I think when you come face to face with other people's living conditions, and when I went to your father's, they killed 2 chickens. They didn't catch, they meant to catch crabs, but the conditions weren't right. So your dad went out and paid God knows what for 5 or 6 jumbo crabs. And they made a table for Chrissy and I with the crabs and the chicken, and and I was like, "You take some of this food in the other room," and they're like, "Oh no, we got plenty of room. We have plenty of there's loads of food in the kitchen." And I didn't believe it. I turned around the corner, there was like no food in the kitchen. They were eating rice in there. We had all the protein, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, this is ridiculous." So I was just you run right into the living conditions that are just so foreign to what that I personally grew up with, and I think it does a little something to you. I'm not exactly sure what it's done, but compared to before and after, it's I've seen it on the other vlogs on YouTube where people kind of like house invade and show other people's province houses or celebrate promissory ceremony out in the provinces. But this was my own personal experiences, and I know it has changed me. I'm just not sure how, but it was definitely impactful.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'm still processing.
Yeah, right. It's too early for you to know what it has changed in your personality after that visit.
I mean, there's a few of your family members, your stepsister who's 5 years old. We met a cousin of yours in Iligan who was a really nice boy, and I was like, gosh, we have a 4-bedroom home here, and we could easily have some of these kids come live with us and impact their lives and put really good food on the table and send them to a good school for little to no extra money from what we normally spend. So it makes you think.
Yeah, right. So during your 2-day stay in the province, in our city, what are the challenges and difficulties that you have experienced in there?
I just concerned for my personal safety. We went to the mall just at dark when it just turned dark, and I was a little concerned about that. So that was my biggest concern. Is there has been some previously there have been some kidnappings in 2019, 2020 of Westerners, and again it's on the do not travel list. So or think again travel list. So I was a little concerned, especially when we went down to your father's. In
Yes.
Sultan Naga Dimapura, which is a heavily, predominantly Muslim area.
Yeah.
And then we drove through an area, there's like a shortcut we took that used to be real trouble. But lately, if you follow the trucks, they said it's okay, so we took that route.
Is there any preconceptions you have in your mind before the visit that have shattered after the visit?
I thought your parents lived in a house, your mother, like your father lives in a province house.
Yeah.
And we showed a video of that, our last video, but your mother doesn't, it's not quite a, it's kind of like a squatter's area. I didn't expect that. I thought it was more of a small house. And you had I had envisioned your mother living in a home, and then you guys built bunkhouses in the yard.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was more of like an alleyway with individual bunkhouses and a common little corridor. So it was just rougher than I expected. And I just thought to myself, boy, when it rains, when there's heavy rain, how do you manage those, muddy paths and, sending kids off to school and having to walk up and down those hills. It's just hard to relate to how you guys managed to grow up so well adjusted. Everybody's so happy and such nice people. I don't know how you managed it.
How would you describe the hospitality and warmth of my family and relatives?
Yeah. Over the top, visiting their homes. So everybody, your brothers, the lack of English, it makes it really hard for people to, express their hospitality. So, but having said that, I felt like they had gone to a lot of trouble to get ready for me, that they'd cleaned up, and they when it comes to the food, they make sure you get fed first, and everybody made me feel very, very comfortable.
So, what do you think others, the viewers, can learn from your experience?
I think, these YouTube channels like ours bring people up close and personal into our lives, but into the life of the province, to the Filipino culture, the Filipino people, the problems that Filipinos face in terms of infrastructure, in terms of food scarcity and food security. Filipinos, regardless of living in the province or in the big cities, and you see them in the malls, they're just like Americans. They're just like Westerners. Right now, Philippines is a developing country, and I think the message or the lesson that this type of video can bring to people is that it's just there's a sort of an uneven distribution of resources in the world, where there's haves and have-nots. It's not that people aren't willing to work hard. I think the Filipinos are about the hardest working people. All over Asia, people are really hardworking, actually. All over South America, people are hardworking. Very, very hardworking people, family-oriented people. And given the opportunity, they assimilate. And you're a perfect example of that. I mean, you could show up at any five-star dinner or five-star hotel in the world and blend right in. And I only speak 1.5 languages, like a little bit of Spanish, You're speaking 3 languages and you're on video, and so there's a lot of raw potential here in the Philippines and in Asia in general.
Did this visit change your outlook about poverty and its impact to people's lives?
The thing that it's like a contradiction, people are living in poverty, but they seem so well adjusted and so healthy and so happy. I didn't run into like a disease or a disability or family members who were really sick in bed, struggling and couldn't get an operation, that kind of stuff. Other than the fact that 50% of their calories seems to come from rice. I mean, like your father lives at the ocean. They go out and they catch crabs. There's the free food, crabs and shrimp. They can pull it out of the ocean. Your brother works at an egg distribution and catering business, so I don't think there's food scarcity there. But money's tight, and they wouldn't be living in those living conditions if there was extra money. And so they're trying to work themselves into a better living situation. But people are generally happy and healthy. They're kind of living a well-adjusted, happy life.
So, what will be your advice to someone that are planning to visit the hometown of their girlfriend that is in the same circumstances?
My advice would be to watch a few vlogs, so you get a little bit of the lay of the land. Like I had seen a few vlogs of guys going back to their girl's hometown, Provincial life. You know, the way the bathrooms work, the way people shower, the way the walls at some of the houses will have gaps, and you know, you're not really protected from geckos and flying insects from coming in and out. They'll have a fan usually, but they don't like using too much electricity. No refrigerator, cooking outside. Familiarize yourself, I would say. I think you should arrive with something. If they feed you, you should provide 5 times as much food as what you get fed. Yeah. And don't expect too much English.
Personally, how did this visit change, or is there any changes after their visit, after this visit in our relationship and our future plans?
You know, we have a large age gap of 37 years, and you know, I've said this before, that you know, I've had someone say to me, if I think there's any reason other than financial security that we're together, I'm out of my mind. And you know, so seeing the, you know, the rough conditions that you were living in or you came from, you know, I can kind of have a little bit more appreciation for what would motivate a Filipina in the provinces, or a Filipina who's living in a boarding house in Manila, to engage in a relationship with a Western man who might be older. I do understand that there's a strong motivation there. At the same time, I am, you know, either Chrissy's the world's best actress, or I'm just not that smart. But I'm of the belief that we have something special, and that even though we have a large age gap, we come from different backgrounds, that we're able to mesh and have something special. And so the visit didn't change any of that, but it did give me maybe a better context, better understanding of what would motivate a pretty young woman like yourself to want to make some changes in her life. Yeah.
So had you ever developed a doubt of the affection and love that I am showing you after that visit?
No,
you might
never.
think that
No.
you think I am just like forced or acting up,
No,
loving
no,
you.
no. If any, the biggest thing is it's hard for me to understand how none of those living conditions, like, there's no sign of them. You are living in this modern home, and I take you to Makati, and there's nothing about that living experience that anyone would ever see or pick up on. I don't see it, like, day in, day out. I just can't see it. I don't, I mean, there was the day where you wanted to know how to use a toaster, because you'd never, the pop-up toaster, you'd never used or seen one before.
Right.
But other than strange little things like that, there's no evidence that you come from that existence, or that you lived for years and years in that type of environment. Just none whatsoever. So that's just like the fact that I got to see it is interesting, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change how I feel. No.
No turn off.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Because if there's a turn off, I'm gonna turn this off.
Right. Yeah.
How can we bridge this gap between our two different worlds?
The one thing I did think of when I was visiting your parents, and when we published the video showing your mom's house, is my kids back home, because they don't live it. They're busy. They have lives of their own, but they're very sensitive to what people think. of them because of, the fact that I'm over here. And when they see, the kind of living conditions that you used to live in,
Right.
I was worried about their reactions, their impressions, and whether they would be as open-minded. I know they will eventually, but in terms of bridging our two worlds, that's my goal. Is I want my kids, they're in that phase now where they're trying to digest what's happened. It's still so new. It's in the first year, and they need time to kind of, just digest it, let it sink in,
Right.
see me living my best life, get to know you better through video mostly. But eventually we want to go visit the United States. We want people to meet you. We want my grandchildren to see me again. And, so we need to bridge those two worlds because there's a perception. People, they don't watch these YouTubes. They don't follow these Philippine niche videos. To them it's very, very foreign, and any younger woman with an older man, they just don't trust it. They don't believe in it. They see potentially the worst, or maybe they're just looking out for my best interest. So they just can't get their arms around it, that it's a thing here in the Philippines where age gap is not, stink-eyed on as much as in the West. I've said this before, there's this universal formula. It's half your age plus 7. So I'm 67, so you take like 33 and a half plus 7. If you were 40.5, I could take you to any dinner party in Europe, any dinner, we'd be welcome anywhere. And for hundreds of years in America and Europe, that's been the rule. Well, we violated that rule because, you're only 30, you're not 40. So we violated that rule by 10 years, so, you're really not welcome. We're not welcome at the dinner tables of Europe and country club living in America. It's just too big an age difference. And so, getting the cultures to mesh on top of the age gap difference is our challenge. And it's not something that I regret by any means. I am living my best life. I pinch myself every day. I'm very, very happy, and I'm sorry I violated the half plus 7 rule, but that's just the way it is.
Were there any moments during the visit that made you emotional or reflective?
Well, we haven't talked about it, but you have a 4-year-old. Your son is 4
Yeah.
years and 4.5 almost.
Yeah.
And he's being raised primarily by your mother-in-law. You have shared custody with your former husband, and we've made the decision to, leave him there with your mother-in-law while we establish our relationship and while we, integrate our lives together. And so that's a big challenge for me, is wanting to, get your son living here with us, but then trying to determine whether or not he's just a little too young at 4 and 4 months to, because I'm retired, so I'm home during the day. He's not yet really at the age where he'd be at school more than 1 or 2 hours a day. So we made this decision to let him go to preschool with his grandmother, and hopefully have him move here next year when he would go to full-time school. And in the Philippines, it's weird. They go from 8 to 5, 5 days a week, and not really wanting to have a housekeeper or a nanny in the house. So that's really challenging for me, to see you separated from your child, to see you struggling with what's best, and me trying to think about what's best for us and for the child and for me. That's a real challenge. I don't know that I have it figured out, but I know that it's needs to be sorted out. What do you think about that for the people? They probably want to know your thoughts.
My thoughts about that, if you have a Filipina that having already 1 or 2 kids, at least now you will see the upcoming challenges when you are together, because the Filipino would probably prefer not to have their kids with them at the first year while you're still building up your relationship with her. And you should appreciate that the Filipino would willing to make adjustment, sacrifice, so that you and her will meet in between.
Right.
You know.
And it's really the reason we're living here in Cagayan de Oro, because it's only a $10 bus ride, 5 hours back home for you to visit your child, or for us to bring the child here, and he's been here twice. Um, and otherwise we might be living in a different part of the Philippines. So we don't want to take you too far away from your family, especially your child.
Right.
And in an emergency, you can be home 5-hour car ride, and your family can come back and forth. So that's kind of the way we're handling that. Okay, what else you got for me?
Looking back, is there anything you wish you have done differently during the visit?
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, we spent 2 nights, and I was a little worried about my security. And I thought maybe only one night might be a better approach. Because at first I wasn't willing to go at all. When I first met you, I was just like, the State Department says don't go. I don't think I should go. So I think we chose to spend the second night. We had your father and your brother sleep down the hall. We got to visit both your mother's house and your father's house. We brought your father and your stepmother back up here with your son for an additional 3-4 days. I think, I think we covered all the bases. I don't have any regrets about how we handled the visit.
What do you think is the one takeaway lesson that you can share to the viewers with that experience?
Well, initially I rented a van, I rented an Airbnb, and I put 16 people in the van, and I brought them all up to Cagayan de Oro because I wasn't willing to, risk the security situation. I don't know if, in hindsight, I think I probably should have gone to flown to Pagadian from Manila. Maybe spent one night at the hotel or one day there. I probably should have traveled to the family house instead of making everybody come up to Cagayan de Oro. I mean, we took them to a nice waterfall, and we treated them to a nice feast, and we had a nice air-conditioned house. But I think I would do that differently. It would have been less expensive to go down there. I spent maybe $1,000 altogether. It was much cheaper to travel there and see people in their own homes, and so I would do that differently. I think I would have maybe wished we could have done more fishing or more crabbing at your father's. The tide wasn't quite right for that. We got, we had a car, so we got around. That's the thing. The rental car gave us access to really see things. And I got to, when you rent a car and you drive around, you really get to know things way better than when you're going point to point all the time. Because you can we wove our way down to the seashore, the bay, and we drove through certain neighborhoods, and you just get a much better experience if you're out on a motorbike or if you're in a vehicle on your own, and you can kind of noodle around. I think that was a great way to.
That's the things that I want to know about your feelings.
I'm still here. I still love you.
So, for me, it is really a big thing, like showing you, open up my world to you. The very first place I had opened up for you, and I let you see in reality my situation previously. And of course, it is also a big decision for me to decide if I'm gonna show my life to you and also to the YouTube. So it's really it's kind of like a big.
I gotta be honest with you. Like, the day will come where I will bring you back to America, and you're gonna see the luxury and the comfort level that I used to live at. I'll drive you by my old house that sits on an acre. I'll take you to my daughter's homes because she has a beach house, and they'll put us in their beautiful SUV that costs God knows what, and you'll see my son's house and the big backyard, and how
Right.
there's no roosters and barking dogs, and
Right.
the infrastructure is just so pristine. And I'm gonna worry about what you think when you see how soft I had it growing up, and the way people in the West live, and the food and the portions,
Right.
and I'm gonna worry about our relationship after you see this. Maybe it'll change the way you see me. So the day will come where the shoe will be on the other foot, and I'll be a little anxious about whether you see me the same afterwards. It's one thing to see it in the movies. It's another thing to see it up close.
So
Well, thank you for interviewing me, I think.
yeah, it's the way for me to get to know what's in your mind after that visit.
Yeah, it's
And
quite the surprise.
yes, and I wanted to share it also to the people
Okay.
because I've seen a lot of comments there that they wanted to visit Philippines and they wanted to see their girlfriends, and I'm telling you that you might experience challenges like what Rob's had experienced during here to meet up, living together with a Filipina, and also knowing your Filipina's background and previous lifestyle.
Yeah. I think if you're lucky, your Filipina is going to come from a strong family. And it's not about the living conditions. It's just she's got this really strong nuclear family that are hardworking, religious, they are healthy, have a great outlook on life. They're very accepting of me. They've never made any demands on us or me. And that's your best route to success, because then your Filipina is going to have all those attributes and characteristics too. And so I'm glad I was able to give you answers to these 20 questions.
So that's it, guys, and thank you for staying with us and watching our lives, my life, Rob's life, and our life together. And I hope that you will watch our future videos.